One of my clients is about to meet her fifth boss in 2 years. She's at the same company. Her name is Tessa, and she's the director of member growth for a large subscription business. It's been through a ton of changes over the past few years. They've had an acquisition, they've gone through a restructuring, they've brought in new executives, changes in organizational strategy, and multiple rounds of layoffs. And every time her company goes through another one of these big shifts, she gets a new boss. And she's understandably exhausted. If you've ever had a new manager, you know onboarding one means a new beginning. Someone new to clarify your role and responsibilities with, to build trust with, to get some W's on the board with. The process takes a little while, which means that right when Tessa's hitting her groove, her manager changes. She's got to start all over. And she likes the energy of early stage companies. This is not going to be the last time she has to do this. And on a recent call, she mentioned to me that she needed some type of system so that she could onboard a new manager faster without taking so much energy, something repeatable so that she could do this every time this happens instead of waiting and hoping that things go well. So we built one together in this video. I'll share that system with you. And before I walk you through it, I also just want to illustrate how I know that this solves the right problems, because for the past 6 months, I've also been coaching her boss. Well, not Tessa's actual boss, somebody different, call him Jamie, who's an SVP of marketing hired to replace a different team lead. And she walked in basically as that new boss. She inherited a large team of direct reports, but the team that she inherited, that she was excited about, her CEO told her during the interview process, nobody on that team was protected. He wanted her to evaluate everyone as she figured out her strategy and her operating system, and for her to decide who stayed. And the unspoken expectation was that probably around half of those people would go as she reworked the strategy in her operation system. And from the outside looking in, I think it's easy to look at someone like Jamie, like a new executive, and think, oh God, this is somebody who wants to fire everybody and just bring in their own people. But after working with Jamie, the truth is a little bit different. She wanted to keep as many people as possible for as long as possible. In fact, she and I talked about how to show up and win them over, because she, again, was under pressure to show results fast to her board, to her CEO. And it takes a long time if you want to let people go and then scope out new roles and then hire new people and then onboard them and then finally get the fruits of their great work. These are all things that limit your ability to get quick wins on the board today. So the best option for Jamie was to increase the impact with the team that she inherited. So that was the plan. And then 4 months in, her CEO turned up the heat. Leads were still down. He pulled her aside and said, look, this is my biggest problem as a CEO, which means it's your biggest problem as our SVP of marketing. She called that conversation the most tense leadership conversation of her whole career. And she told me that she worried that she was failing. Maybe she wouldn't last. Maybe she would get cut and let go. And I share all this not to air out Jamie's dirty laundry, but to illustrate the context that your new boss typically is not going to share with you as your direct report. So it's important to remember that your new manager is also someone that's being evaluated by somebody else above them. They're not walking in looking to replace you. They're looking for things and people that make their job easier. So we want to give them a reason to keep us. Here's how you do it. Here's how you onboard your new boss. It's 4 things to think about during their first 2 months or so. Now, each of these is going to make your job easier. It's going to make you also look like you're easier to manage and easier for a new boss to see how you fit into what they're building. The 4th thing is going to help you understand a win that plays out over the next couple of months, but the conversation should happen fairly early in the first 30, 60 days or so. Now, the first thing we need to do is to clarify and verify our role and responsibilities. We do not want to start a new relationship with a new manager by asking them how they see us fitting into their future, because 2 challenges. 1, they don't know the answer to that. And 2, we're asking them to do a whole bunch of work. Instead, do the opposite. Let's help them understand what we've done. What have we owned in the past? Historically, here's the business result I've been accountable for, and here's the service area that I've been focused on. And the reason why this is important is because most of the time, new managers, they have no idea. They might know your title. They might have like a vague idea of what you do. They don't know why you do it. They don't know what this company needs in terms of skill set, what your role means at this company in this moment, how much rides on it, how important it is. All this is new. So let's make it easy. Fill in the numbers for them before they have to guess and figure it out themselves. And the risk here, if you skip this, is that a new manager who can't fully understand and explain what you do and why it matters, they can't go to bat for you when it's important. And Jamie saw this with the team that she inherited. And a lot of the people that were on her team were used to being told what to do. They were taskmasters. They'd been basically told, here's what to do every minute of every day by the old leader, so that when those instructions stopped, a lot of them couldn't really explain what they did and why they did it. They knew their tasks, but they couldn't really understand their impact on the business and why that mattered, which meant she couldn't go to bat for them. So we want to avoid that. Help your manager clarify and verify your role and responsibilities. Now, the second thing we want to do is after we do that, we want to walk them through our strategy and how that ladders up. So once our role is clear, we want to show them what we're working on and why. There's two important things we need to communicate. The first is that we have an actual strategy, right? We're not just managing tasks. We're not just doing stuff. We're not busy. We have an approach. That approach is important and thoughtful. Here's how we did it. And the second thing we want to communicate is that it ladders straight up to important business outcomes. It includes the service area that you just clarified in the previous conversation. We want to talk through, not just show them what our strategy is, but explain some of the assumptions that we use to build it, what we would change if our company priorities shifted. That does a little bit of your boss's job for them. And if they do decide, hey, I want to rescope this role in the way that they've been doing things, they'll know how thoughtfully you've approached your current one. And if you need help explaining what your strategy is, or you need a template, I'll put a link to my growth strategy in the description below. It's the exact one that I use with my clients. And if you skip this, you're at risk. Because when your boss asks what you're working on and you just hand them a bunch of stuff that you're doing, you basically communicated without saying it explicitly that you're a doer, that you're a taskmaster. And again, when Jamie did this with her team, when she asked what their strategy, she got a long list of to-dos, plenty of activity, almost no business case for why that activity was important and impactful or how it laddered up to the number that she was brought in to grow. So hand your boss a real strategy instead and communicate to them that we're someone worth keeping around. Now, the third conversation to have is to get really explicit on decision rights. We want to ask them specifically which decisions they would like to be involved in and which ones they just want us to continue running with. And again, we're doing this for a couple of reasons. One, it's showing our manager that we're easy to manage, right? We're already starting that process of managing up, letting them know, hey, here's a bunch of stuff that's in flight. What do you want me to take and how can we start to collaborate? And two, the answer to this question is going to help you to understand what's on your manager's mind right now, what's important to them. And again, how can we start collaborating on those things that are important? And you might be able to shift your focus to the things that are more important to them, which allows you to add more value quicker. And so when they flag the decisions that they want to be included in, they're basically starting to show you their focus areas without saying it so explicitly. If we skip this, one of two things is going to happen. Either we're moving too fast on something that they were hoping to be involved in, which isn't a great look, or we're going too slow and we're asking permission for something that they expected us to handle. And it reads as someone who needs their hand held or someone who can't make decisions on their own. Regardless of which of those mistakes you might make, either one is going to chip away at the trust that we're trying to build. Now, the fourth conversation to have is to understand what their early wins are so that we can help them get them. Now, most of the time, when you get a new boss, you're not going to know what their priorities are for the first 30, 60 days. They're going to tell you they're in listening mode for the first couple months as they're figuring things out behind the scenes. And part of what they're figuring out, in addition to like what should our strategy be and how to structure the team, is if you're a part of that future that they're building, right? They're hoping you are, as we've explained, and your job is to get them talking sooner. So the faster that we can understand what some wins and quick wins might look like to them, the quicker we can start having an impact in this new world. So ask them, be upfront about it. What are the things you're hoping to show progress on in the first 60 to 90 days? Then help with those things. Because new leaders are under so much pressure to show progress quickly from a boss or from the board that they haven't fully won over yet either. And nothing builds trust faster than getting some W's on the board. So this is how you can onboard a new boss the right way so that you can stay around for their future for a long time. And each one of those 4 conversations that I just flagged is basically you deciding to own this transition instead of waiting for them to own it or waiting to see how it might shake out. You show up with answers before they have to ask. And what you're doing in the process is you're making yourself easy to manage instead of someone who needs to be figured out. All this is part of managing up. Tessa meets her new boss next week. Boss number 5 in 2 years, not going to be the last. And the difference this time is pretty clear. She walks in with a plan, some specific conversations that she can use to manage the transition instead of waiting and hoping that it goes well. If If you enjoyed this video, I hope you subscribe for more content like this. I help senior growth leaders navigate new bosses, new mandates, shift from operator to leader. If you're looking for some support for any of that stuff, feel free to reach out. Put a link to my coaching page in the description below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.